This is Earl Nightingale, speaking to you from a quiet studio, where the truths of life ring out like the deep toll of a cathedral bell, echoing across the ages, piercing the fog of routine, and calling the weary, the seeking, the dreamers to the shores of their destiny. Before we embark on this journey, a journey that may awaken the slumbering giant within you, that may forever alter the course of your life, I extend a solemn invitation to join our sacred fellowship of visionaries. These are the souls who hunger for wisdom, who burn with the fire of purpose, who dare to challenge the chains of mediocrity and seek the riches of a life well lived. If this message sets your heart ablaze, if it stirs the Creator within you, I urge you to share it with others by subscribing to this program. Write to us, share your thoughts in our great conversation, and let us know you stand with us by leaving your mark of approval. Your voice strengthens this circle, and together we can forge a brotherhood of dreamers, a legion of those who refuse to drift through life asleep. Now, settle in, for we speak of a truth so simple, so profound, it has transformed the lives of over 1 million souls, lifting them from the shadows of struggle to the heights of true wealth. It began as a whisper, a few words passed from heart to heart, but it grew into thunder, shaking the foundations of lives once thought ordinary, illuminating paths once thought unreachable. These are the words that made 1 million people rich, not merely in gold or silver, but in purpose, in progress, in the deep peace of a life aligned with its calling. Will you hear them? Will you speak them? Will you live them? The choice is yours, and the moment is now. Let's begin. There are words, my friends, so simple they slip through the fingers like grains of sand, yet so powerful they can reshape the world, carve rivers through stone, kindle flames in the darkest hearts, and build bridges to destinies unclaimed. These words, barely more than a whisper when first spoken, have sparked a revolution in the minds of over 1 million men and women, awakening them from the slumber of routine, lifting them from the fog of conformity, and guiding them to the riches of a life well lived. Picture a farmer, his hands roughened by years at the plow, standing in his fields at dusk, his heart heavy with the weight of endless toil, his eyes tracing the horizon where dreams once burned bright. One evening, a neighbor, a man of quiet wisdom, shares a phrase, a handful of words that seem at first like a passing breeze, a fleeting murmur in the twilight. But these words take root, like a seed in fertile soil, like a spark in dry tinder, and they grow until the farmer sees his fields not as a burden, but as a canvas for abundance, a garden of possibility, a testament to his vision. Picture a blacksmith, his forge glowing in the night, his hammer striking iron with the rhythm of his soul, his mind once alive with dreams of creation. A traveler passing through the village speaks these words over a shared meal, and they linger, like the echo of a distant bell, like the glow of a star in the dawn. They stir him, until he dares to craft not just tools, but works of art, gates that will stand through centuries, swords that will gleam like moonlight, creations that will carry his name through time. Picture a merchant, his shop filled with the hum of trade, his days once confined to the narrow aisles of routine, his heart once tethered to the ledger's weight. A customer, a woman of insight, utters these words in passing, and they strike like a spark, like a tide turning, igniting a vision of markets beyond the horizon, of a legacy that will echo through the ages, of a life painted in colors bold and true. These words began as a whisper, my friends, passed from voice to voice, from heart to heart, across villages and cities, across oceans and plains, across the quiet hearts of farmers and the bustling docks of sailors. They were spoken in the glow of forges, in the clamor of marketplaces, in the stillness of poets' chambers, in the hum of factory floors, until they became thunder, a clarion call that shook the souls of a million seekers, awakening them to the wealth within their grasp. What is this phrase, you ask? It is no secret guarded by kings, no formula locked in a vault, no treasure buried beneath the earth's crust. It is a truth as old as the stars, as universal as the tides, as enduring as the oak that grows from a single acorn, as relentless as the wind that shapes the dunes. I first spoke it years ago, in a moment of quiet reflection, and it has since traveled the world, touching lives from the humblest cottage to the grandest hall. In my message, The Strangest Secret, I said, we become what we think about most of the time, and that's the strangest secret. These words, so simple yet so profound, have been the spark that turned dreams into reality, that lifted men and women from the fog of routine to the clarity of purpose, that transformed lives of struggle into lives of wealth. Not merely the wealth of gold, but the wealth of a heart fulfilled, a mind sharpened, a soul aligned with its destiny. Picture the sailor, his ship tethered to the harbor, his heart yearning for uncharted seas, his eyes fixed on the horizon where adventure calls. He hears these words from a weathered captain, and they stir him, like a wind filling the sails, like a tide pulling at the shore, until he sets forth, discovering lands that will bear his name, charting paths that will guide generations. Picture the poet, her pen idle, her verses silenced by the demands of duty, her heart heavy with unspoken beauty. She hears these words from a wandering philosopher, and they awaken her, like a flame kindled in the dark, like a star breaking through the clouds, until she writes lines that will move the hearts of centuries. Picture the factory worker, his days measured by the hum of machinery, his dreams buried beneath the weight of repetition. He hears these words from a fellow laborer, and they resonate, like the toll of a bell, like the beat of a drum, until he dares to learn, to create, to build a life beyond the factory walls, a life that shines like a beacon in the night. These words are not mere sounds, my friends. They are a key to unlock the riches within you, a compass to guide you through the storms of life, a spark to ignite the fire of your potential, a seed to plant in the garden of your mind. But they are only a whisper until you speak them, until you let them take root, until you let them grow in a thunder that shakes your soul, that reshapes your world, that leads you to the wealth you were born to claim. Picture the teacher, her days spent guiding young minds, her heart once alive with dreams of inspiring a generation. She hears these words from a colleague, and they stir her, like a wind through a quiet valley, until she begins to think not just of lessons, but of legacies, of minds awakened, of lives transformed. Picture the M, his heart yearning for distant lands, his soul restless with the call of the unknown. He hears these words from a storyteller by a campfire, and they awaken him, like a tide rising, until he sets forth, collecting stories that will enrich the world, forging paths that others will follow. Picture his hands skilled in the art of creation, his mind once confined to the tasks at hand. He hears these words from a mentor, and they resonate, like a hammer striking an anvil, until he begins to think not just of work, but of masterpieces, of creations that will stand as monuments to his craft. These words have touched a million lives, my friends, and they can touch yours if you will hear them, if you will speak them, if you will live them. And so, I ask you, listener, do you hear that whisper in the quiet of your heart? Do you feel its gentle nudge, its persistent call, its promise of wealth beyond gold? Will you let it pass like a breeze through the trees, or will you let it become thunder, shaking the foundations of your life, leading you to the riches you were born to claim? Will you speak the words, or will you remain silent in the fog of routine? What does it mean to be rich, my friends? The world would have you believe that wealth is a chest of gold, a ledger filled with figures, a house of marble and stone, a ship laden with treasures from distant shores. But I tell you now, True wealth is something far greater, far deeper, far more enduring. A wealth that no thief can steal, no storm can sink, no fire can consume. It is the wealth of a life lived with purpose, of a mind sharpened by progress, of a heart at peace with its calling, of a soul that shines like a star in the night. It is the farmer who rises each dawn not to toil, but to create, to cultivate fields that feed not just bodies, but souls, to plant a garden that blooms with the colors of his vision. It is the blacksmith who forges not just iron, but a legacy, crafting works that stand as monuments to his skill, striking the anvil with the fire of his dreams. It is the merchant who trades not just goods, but ideas, weaving a tapestry of commerce that enriches the world, building bridges to markets unseen. It is the sailor who sails not just for profit, but for discovery, charting seas that expand the horizons of humanity, following the stars to lands unknown. It is the poet whose verses lift the spirit, whose words echo through time, whose heart sings with the joy of creation, whose pen is a beacon in the darkness. It is the philosopher whose questions pierce the veil of ignorance, whose truths light the way for generations, whose mind is a sanctuary of wisdom. It is the factory worker who builds not just products, but a life of meaning, whose hands shape a future of his own design, whose dreams rise above the hum of the machine. It is the teacher who inspires not just students, but a generation, whose lessons plant seeds of wisdom that will bloom for centuries. It is the M who wanders not just for adventure, but for understanding, whose journeys weave a tapestry of stories that enrich the human spirit. It is the who crafts not just objects, but beauty, whose creations stand as testaments to the power of the human soul. This is the forgotten seed of wealth, my friends, planted within you at birth, waiting to be nurtured, waiting to grow, waiting to bloom into a life of abundance that no gold can measure. Yet how many search for this wealth outside themselves, chasing shadows in the marketplace, seeking treasures in distant lands, hoping for riches to fall from the sky like rain, running across bridges that lead nowhere. Picture the farmer, his eyes fixed on the horizon, believing that wealth lies in another's fields, not in the soil beneath his feet, not in the vision within his heart. He toils without purpose, plants without passion, and wonders why his harvest yields only enough to survive, why his soul remains hungry. Picture the blacksmith, his hammer striking iron, believing that wealth is a matter of more orders, more coins, not the mastery of his craft, not the fire of his dreams. He works without joy, creates without inspiration, and wonders why his forge feels like a prison, why his heart grows cold. Picture the merchant, his shop bustling with trade, believing that wealth is a matter of bigger profits, not bolder visions, not deeper connections. He counts his coins without satisfaction, trades without aspiration, and wonders why his ledger feels like a chain, why his life lacks color. Picture the sailor, his ship anchored in the harbor, believing that wealth is a matter of safer waters, not braver journeys, not the call of the open sea. He fishes the familiar tides, avoids the storms, and wonders why his heart yearns for horizons unseen, why his soul feels tethered. Picture the teacher, her days spent in the classroom, believing that wealth is a matter of recognition, not inspiration, not the mind she shapes. She teaches without vision, corrects without passion, and wonders why her work feels like a duty, why her heart remains restless. The seed of wealth is within you, my friends, not in the world beyond. It is in your thoughts, your dreams, your vision for what your life can be. As I said in Lead the Field, the only thing that stands between a man and what he wants from life is often merely the will to try it and the faith to believe that it is possible. This seed was planted long ago in the quiet chambers of your mind, in the sacred sanctuary of your soul, but has been forgotten, buried beneath the weight of routine, smothered by the fog of conformity, dimmed by the fear of failure, hidden by the dust of doubt. Yet it is still there, my friends, waiting for you to water it with purpose, to nurture it with action, to let it grow into a tree whose branches touch the stars, whose roots anchor your destiny, whose leaves whisper of abundance. Consider the sailor, standing on the dock, his heart alive with dreams of distant shores, his eyes fixed on the horizon where adventure calls. He does not need a grand ship or a king's ransom to begin. He needs only the courage to set sail, to trust the seed of wealth within him, to believe that his journey will lead to riches of experience, of wisdom, of discovery. Consider the poet, her heart a fountain of words, her mind a canvas of beauty, her soul a garden of light. She does not need a patron or a publisher to create. She needs only the faith to write, to trust the seed of wealth within her, to believe that her verses will find their place in the hearts of others, that her words will shine like stars. Consider the factory worker, his hands skilled, his mind hungry for knowledge, his heart burning with ambition. He does not need a new job or a stroke of luck to rise. He needs only the will to learn, to trust the seed of wealth within him, to believe that his efforts will build a life of purpose, a bridge to his dreams. Consider the M, his soul restless with the call of the unknown, his heart yearning for stories from distant lands. He does not need a map or a fortune to begin. He needs only the courage to take one step, to trust the seed of wealth within him, to believe that his journeys will weave a tapestry of wisdom. The seed of wealth is not a matter of chance, my friends. It is a matter of choice. It is the choice to think differently, to dream boldly, to act with faith, to build bridges to your destiny rather than walls around your fears. It is the choice to see your life not as a series of tasks, but as a canvas waiting for your brush, a ship waiting for your helm, a forge waiting for your hammer, a garden waiting for your seed, a sanctuary waiting for your light. And so, I ask you, listener, do you feel that seed within you? Do you sense its quiet presence, its gentle pulse, its promise of abundance? Or have you forgotten it, searching for wealth in all the wrong places, running across bridges that lead nowhere? Will you nurture it, or will you let it lie dormant, buried beneath the weight of a life unlived? Will you let it grow into a tree that touches the stars, or will you let it wither in the shadows of routine? This truth, this seed of wealth, is not new, my friends. It is as old as the hills, as timeless as the tides, as eternal as the stars that guide the sailor's way, as enduring as the wind that shapes the earth. The great men and women of history knew it, lived it, built their lives upon it, leaving legacies that stand like the stones of ancient Rome, like the wisdom of Greece, like the trails blazed by pioneers across uncharted lands, like the creations of artisans whose work endures through the ages. The philosophers of Athens, men like Socrates and Plato, understood that the mind is the forge where destiny is shaped, that a man's thoughts are the tools with which he carves his future, the grain with which he sows his harvest. They questioned the world, not to rebel, but to awaken, to plant the seed of wisdom in the hearts of those who listened, to build a sanctuary of truth that would endure through time. The builders of Rome, with their aqueducts and temples, knew that great works begin with a vision, a thought held steadfast in the mind, a dream that refuses to fade, a bridge that spans the impossible. They did not wait for permission. They thought, they planned, they built, and their creations stand as monuments to the power of the mind, as testaments to the wealth of vision. The pioneers of a new world, crossing oceans and plains, knew that wealth is not found in gold alone, but in the courage to forge a new life, to plant a seed in untamed soil, to think of a future greater than the present, to build bridges to freedom. They faced storms and hardships. Yet their thoughts of possibility, of opportunity, of destiny carried them forward, shaping a world that echoes their vision, blazing paths that others would follow. Consider the quiet workers of the industrial age, men and women whose hands built the machines that powered a new era, whose minds shaped the tools that changed the world. They were not kings or scholars, but they knew the seed of wealth, for they thought not just of the task before them, but of what their labor could become, of the bridges they could build to a better future. Picture the factory man, his days spent amidst the hum of machinery, his nights lit by a single lamp as he studies, dreaming of a better way, a new invention, a life beyond the assembly line. His thoughts, held steadfast, lead him to create, to rise, to build a legacy that outlives his years, a flame that burns through time. Picture the merchant, his shop a hub of trade, his mind alive with visions of markets beyond his village, his heart burning with the call of opportunity. He thinks not just of today's sales, but of tomorrow's possibilities, and his thoughts guide him to new lands, new connections, new riches, building bridges to worlds unseen. Picture the poet, her heart a wellspring of beauty, her mind a canvas of light, her soul a sanctuary of truth. She thinks not just of the present, but of the hearts her words will touch, and her verses become a beacon, a flame that burns through the ages, a bridge to the eternal. Picture the teacher, her classroom a garden of young minds, her heart alive with dreams of inspiration. She thinks not just of lessons, but of legacies, and her teachings plant seeds that will bloom for generations, building bridges to wisdom. As I said in The Strangest Secret, the architect of the universe didn't build a stairway leading nowhere. The great men and women of history knew this, my friends. They knew that their thoughts were the blueprint, the compass, the spark, the grain that could lead them to wealth, not just of gold, but of purpose, of progress, of peace. They knew that to think is to create, to dream is to build, to envision is to become, to sow is to reap. This truth was not reserved for the mighty, nor hidden from the humble. It was known to the farmer who thought of abundant harvests and worked to make them real, to the blacksmith who thought of masterful creations and forged them with his hands, to the sailor who thought of distant shores and sailed to find them, to the am who thought of stories and wandered to collect them. It was known to the philosopher who thought of eternal truths and spoke them to the world, to the poet who thought of timeless beauty and wove it into words, to the factory worker who thought of progress and built it step by step, to the who thought of masterpieces and crafted them with care. The great men and women of history were not different from you, my friends. They were simply awake, their minds alive with thoughts of what could be, their hearts bold with the courage to act, their souls burning with the fire of purpose. They spoke the words, they lived the truth, they sowed the grain, they built the bridges, and they reaped the wealth of a life well lived. And so, I ask you, listener, will you join them? Will you think as they thought, dream as they dreamed, act as they acted, sow as they sowed? If this message has stirred your soul, if it has awakened the visionary within you, join our fellowship. Write to us, share your thoughts, and let us know you're with us by leaving your mark of approval. Let us stand together, as those who know the truth, as those who speak the words, as those who live the wealth, as those who build bridges to destiny. Will you let the wisdom of the ages pass you by, or will you claim it as your own? Will you think like the great, or will you drift with the many? Will you sow the grain of wealth, or will you wander in the fog, searching for bridges that lead nowhere? Why, then, do so few listen to these words, while so many drift through life, carried like leaves on a river, lost in a fog of routine, bound by unseen chains, wandering across bridges that lead to nowhere? The answer lies in the great machinery of the world, the systems, the institutions, the unspoken rules that govern our days like the ticking of an office clock, its hands moving with unyielding precision, its rhythm lulling the mind to sleep, its chime drowning out the whisper of truth. Picture a vast herd, moving through a fog-shrouded valley, their steps guided not by vision, but by the path worn by those before them, their eyes fixed on the ground, their hearts tethered to the rhythm of conformity. This is the herd of humanity, my friends, conditioned to follow, to obey, to conform, to think not of what could be, but of what is expected, to build walls around their dreams rather than bridges to their destiny. The schoolhouse teaches you to sit in rows, to memorize facts, to repeat the answers of others, not to question, not to dream, not to think for yourself, not to sow the grain of your potential. The factory demands your hands, not your mind, rewarding those who produce without pause, punishing those who dare to innovate, chaining your spirit to the hum of the machine, locking your soul in a sanctuary of silence. The marketplace praises those who sell what is familiar, not those who create what is new, offering coins for compliance and scorn for ambition, building walls where bridges should stand. These systems are like clock towers, their bells tolling the hours of your life, urging you to work faster, to dream less, to live within the gray silence of routine, to drift in the fog of predictability. They are like prisons of the mind, their walls invisible but unyielding, keeping you safe from risk but also from greatness, their gates locked by the fear of standing apart, their shadows dimming the light of your star. Consider the farmer, taught from childhood to plant the same crops, to follow the same seasons, to avoid the risks of change, to sow only what is safe. The village depends on his harvest, and so he is told to stay predictable, to keep his thoughts small, to let his dreams of abundance fade like morning mist, to build walls around his fields rather than bridges to new horizons. He plows the same furrows, reaps the same yields, and drifts through his days, his heart heavy with unspoken longing, his mind dulled by the rhythm of the clock tower, his soul a garden unplanted. Consider the blacksmith, urged to craft only what is needed. Horseshoes, nails, tools, never daring to forge the works of art that burn in his soul, never striking the anvil with the fire of his dreams. The village needs his labor, and so he is kept in place, his hammer striking in time with the factory's hum, his creations cooling like the iron he shapes, his spirit confined to the gray silence of duty, his heart a forge unlit. Consider the merchant, trained to trade only what sells, to smile at customers, to keep his ambitions modest, to walk the paths of others rather than forge his own. The marketplace rewards his conformity, but it punishes his vision, and so he drifts through his transactions, his ledger a map of a life unlived, his heart a sea uncharted, his dreams buried beneath piles of coins. Consider the sailor, told to fish the safe waters near the harbor, to avoid the storms of the open sea, to tether his ship to the dock rather than the stars. The village needs his catch, and so he is tethered, his dreams of distant lands fading like stars at dawn, his life a cycle of predictable tides, his soul a ship unlaunched, his heart a bridge unbuilt. Consider the teacher, urged to teach only what is accepted, to follow the curriculum, to avoid inspiring too boldly. The school needs her compliance, and so she is silenced, her lessons fading like ink on a forgotten page, her soul restless with dreams unshared, her heart a sanctuary unlit. Consider the M, taught to stay close, to choose the familiar over the unknown, to walk the paths of others rather than blaze his own. The world needs his stability, and so he is bound, his journeys untaken, his stories untold, his heart a map uncharted, his soul a bridge untraveled. The systems of the world benefit from this drifting, my friends. A farmer who thinks too boldly might disrupt the village's supply. A blacksmith who creates art might neglect the tools the village needs. A merchant who dreams too big might unsettle the marketplace's balance. A sailor who sails too far might never return. A teacher who inspires too boldly might awaken the herd. A AM who wanders too far might inspire others to follow. And so, the world builds its clock towers, its herds, its gray silences, its walls, ensuring that you stay small, that you stay safe, that you stay asleep, that you never sow the grain of your potential, that you never build the bridges to your destiny. These systems fear the power of your thoughts, for a man or woman who thinks for themselves is a force unstoppable, a flame unquenchable, a tide uncontainable, a star undeniable, a wind unyielding, a bridge unbreakable. They know that if you were to speak these words, to live this truth, to sow this grain, the herd would scatter, the clock tower would falter, the gray silence would shatter, the walls would crumble, and the bridges to greatness would rise. And so, they lull you with promises of comfort, with assurances of security, with warnings of the dangers that lie beyond, with whispers that thinking is risky, that dreaming is foolish, that wealth is for the fortunate few. But I ask you, listener, what is the greater risk? To drift through life, lost in the fog, haunted by the wealth you never claimed, wandering across bridges that lead nowhere, or to awaken, to think, to dare, to sow, to build, and to live the life you're meant to live? As I said in Lead the Field, most people tiptoe through life, hoping to make it safely to death. The world would have you believe that drifting is safety, but it is a prison, a cage of your own making, a gray silence where your dreams go to die, a wall that blocks the bridges to your destiny. If this message has stirred your heart, if it has awakened the rebel, the creator, the dreamer within you, join our fellowship. Write to us, share your thoughts, and let us know you're with us by leaving your mark of approval. Let us stand together as those who refuse to drift, as those who speak the words, as those who live the wealth, as those who tear down walls and build bridges to the stars. Will you let the clock tower dictate your days? Or will you forge your own rhythm? Will you join the herd? Or will you blaze your own trail? Will you live in the gray silence? Or will you let your thoughts become thunder, your dreams become bridges, your life become a sanctuary of wealth? And now, my friends, we come to the heart of our message, the moment when the whisper becomes thunder, when the seed becomes a tree, when the spark becomes a flame, when the grain becomes a harvest, when the bridge leads to destiny. The words that made 1,000,000 people rich are these. We become what we think about most of the time. Speak them, my friends. Let them take root in the fertile soil of your heart. Let them echo in the quiet chambers of your mind. Let them shine in the sanctuary of your soul. Let them guide your every step across the bridges of your life. They are not a charm to be recited, nor a riddle to be solved, but a truth to be lived, a principle to be embraced, a compass to be followed, a grain to be sown, a bridge to be built. Plant these words in your mind, water them with faith, nurture them with action, and watch as they grow into a life of wealth, wealth of purpose, of progress, of peace, of a heart fulfilled, of a soul aligned with its calling. Picture the clerk, his days spent scratching figures in a ledger, his heart once heavy with the weight of routine, his eyes once fixed on the narrow confines of his desk. He hears these words, perhaps from a radio broadcast like this one, and they stir him, like a wind lifting a sail, like a tide turning, like a star breaking through the clouds. He begins to think, not of his desk, but of what he could create, a business, a craft, a legacy. Each night, he studies. Each day, he acts. And in time, he builds a life that shines like a beacon, a testament to the power of his thoughts, a bridge to his destiny. Picture the craftsman, his hands skilled but his dreams dormant, his life once confined to the workshop's walls, his heart once tethered to the tasks at hand. He hears these words from a fellow worker, and they awaken him, like a flame kindled in the dark, like a hammer striking an anvil. He begins to think, not of the tasks before him, but of the masterpieces he could forge, of the beauty he could bring to the world. Each hammer strike becomes a step, each creation a milestone, and in time, his work stands as a monument to the wealth of his vision, a bridge to eternity. Picture the mother, her days filled with the care of her family, her dreams buried beneath the weight of duty, her heart once silent with unspoken longing. She hears these words, perhaps from a friend, and they resonate, like the toll of a bell, like the whisper of a wind. She begins to think, not of her sacrifices, but of what she could become, a teacher, a writer, a leader. Each moment she carves out for herself, each step she takes, builds a life of purpose, a legacy that will inspire her children and beyond, a bridge to greatness. These stories, my friends, are not fables. They're the lives of men and women who heard the words, who spoke them, who lived them, who sowed the grain, who built the bridges. They are the farmer who thought of abundance and reaped a harvest that fed the world, whose fields became a garden of possibility. They are the merchant who thought of new horizons and built a trade that spanned continents, whose markets became bridges to opportunity. They are the sailor who thought of discovery and charted seas unknown, whose journeys became bridges to adventure. They are the poet who thought of beauty and wrote verses that lifted the soul, whose words became bridges to the eternal. They are the philosopher who thought of truth and lit the way for generations, whose wisdom became a sanctuary of light. They are the factory worker who thought of progress and built a life beyond the machine, whose efforts became a bridge to purpose. They are the teacher who thought of inspiration and shaped minds that changed the world, whose lessons became bridges to wisdom. They are the M who thought of stories and wandered to collect them, whose journeys became bridges to understanding. They are the who thought of masterpieces and crafted them with care, whose creations became bridges to beauty. As I said in The Strangest Secret, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Speak these words daily, my friends, and let them shape your thoughts, for your thoughts shape your life. Your thoughts sow the grain, your thoughts build the bridges. Think of what you want, not of what you fear. Dream of what you will become, not of what you lack. Picture your success as vividly as a painter sees his canvas, as clearly as a sailor sees the stars, as boldly as a blacksmith strikes the anvil, as brightly as a star shines in the heavens, as powerfully as a tide shapes the shore, as enduringly as a garden blooms through the seasons, as firmly as a bridge spans the river, and let that vision guide your every action. Begin now, with one step, however small. The farmer does not plant his field in a day. He sows one seed, then another. The merchant does not build an empire in a moment. He makes one trade, then another. The poet does not write an epic in a breath. She crafts one line, then another. The philosopher does not uncover truth in an instant. He asks one question, then another. The sailor does not reach new lands in a day. He sails 1 mile, then another. The teacher does not inspire a generation in a moment. She teaches one lesson, then another. The M does not explore the world in a day. He takes one step, then another. That does not craft a masterpiece in an hour. He shapes one piece, then another. Your thoughts are the seeds, your actions the water, your faith the sunlight, your courage the bridge. Speak the words, live the truth, sow the grain, build the bridges, and the wealth will follow. And so, I speak to you now, you who listen in the quiet of your heart, you who sit alone in the dark, a solitary soul at the crossroads of your life. poised between the fog of routine and the light of destiny, between the walls of conformity and the bridges to greatness, between the gray silence and the thunder of purpose. You are not a shadow, not a cog, not a leaf adrift on the river of time, not a soul condemned to wander across bridges that lead nowhere. You are a creator, a dreamer, a force with the power to shape your world, to paint your life in colors bold and true, to forge a legacy that will echo through the ages, to sow a harvest that will feed the soul of humanity, to build bridges that will span the rivers of doubt. The words that made 1,000,000 people rich are yours to speak, yours to live, yours to make thunder, yours to make a sanctuary of light. Do not let them pass you by, my friend. Do not let them fade like a whisper in the wind, like a spark in the night, like a tide that turns back, like a grain that lies unsown, like a bridge that lies unbuilt. Speak them now, with courage, with faith, with the fire of your soul, with the light of your star, with the power of your tide, with the strength of your bridge. Plant the seed, strike the anvil, set sail, write the verse, ask the question, take the journey, teach the lesson, craft the masterpiece, cultivate the garden, build the bridge, and let the world marvel at what you become. Your life is a canvas, a ship, a forge, a garden, a sanctuary, a bridge, and you hold the brush, the helm, the hammer, the seed, the light, the strength. Paint boldly, sail bravely, forge fiercely, grow eternally, shine brightly, span fearlessly, and create a life that will stand as a beacon, a flame, a star, a tide, a sanctuary, a bridge for all who follow. This is Earl Nightingale, bidding you not farewell, but a new dawn, a new beginning, a new life. If this message has stirred your soul, if it has awakened the creator, the dreamer, the pioneer within you, join our fellowship. Write to us, share your thoughts, and let us know you're with us by leaving your mark of approval. Together, let us speak the words, let us live the wealth, let us sow the grain, let us build the bridges, let us create a world of dreamers who dare, who do, who triumph. The choice is yours, my friend, and the moment is now. Speak the words, live the truth, sow the grain, build the bridge, and let your life become a thunder that shakes the heavens, a wealth that endures forever, a sanctuary that lights the world, a bridge that leads to the stars.